an intro that will mean nothing to you.
Okay.
Great. Hello, one and all, and welcome back to another thrilling episode of Off the Dome. I'm your humble interviewer, Jordan Brown. With me for the very first time is our fabulous filmmakers. Say hi, fabulous filmmakers.
Hello.
Yes, so here's the thing. Normally I talk to people that are Dropout related in some way, more so than they've just... It's from Dropout. It's from a show on Dropout that I started. Anyway, Corey, Fiona, thank you so much. This is so exciting. Writer and director of Dandelion, a short film starring one Vic Michaelis, which is how we got connected. It's super fun. Well, fun might not be the right word. It's really good. Parts of it are very fun.
Hopefully.
But yeah, it's I don't is the Cascadia Film Festival still happening? I don't. Who knows when I'm going to post this? But like, find it on the internet and watch it. There's that.
Yeah. Yeah. Once the festival, online festival, ends in 2 days, but then there will be more festivals with more online options. So it'll be available.
Yeah. We got connected. Corey posted about the film on Reddit, and it was one that had been on my radar because, as you two, I think, are aware, I'm obsessed with Vic Michaelis.
As we all are.
Yeah.
As should everyone be.
Yeah, it just makes sense. Now, this is the only way this could possibly start. Is it true you watched some of my interviews with Vic when you just were casting for Dandelion?
100%.
Yes, it is my birthday, so you have to say yes. Thank you.
That's incredible. Yeah, 100% is true, because we were on a pretty tight deadline to find our Joyce for this project, and I had seen Dropout clips, but I wasn't super familiar with Vic outside of that. So we also watched their Hallmark movie, which they're also incredible in. And
very good in.
That's a real skill to transcend the cheesiness of a Hallmark movie and make it a real human emotional experience. But yeah, and so I was just trying to find out as much as I could about them as a performer and as a person, because when casting Joyce, it was really important that the performer that took up the role kind of fit into what we see Joyce as. And it was really important for us to have an actor that was part of the community as well. And so we just kind of deep dived into all things Vic. And part of those are your lovely interviews with them.
Oh, man. So that means, can we get it clean? Vic was cast in this movie because of my interviews with them.
If we ever say elsewise, that's just for other people.
Right. Yeah. Great. Perfect. Dandelion is, like I said, I'll say, okay, all right. I'm all over the place. That's just the state. Look, you've seen some of my interviews. You know this is how it goes.
We love it. We love it.
Yeah. So obviously, when it's a short film. It's 20 minutes long, I believe. In the 1970s. With a young girl, teenage girl, and Vic is trying to find her a foster home for until she's 18, and having some trouble, we'll say. It's like I said, it's really, it's obviously it's very funny, because obviously you put Vic Michaelis in something, it's gonna be funny. But also really heartfelt and beautiful and packs a punch. Here's what I will say: it's not sad enough for best short for the Oscars. I don't know if you've seen. I'm sure you've seen them. But I used to. Yeah, years ago, I would go see a movie theater would be here's all the best animated shorts. And here's all the best live action. The animated ones are delightful and fun, and honestly, kind of similar to your movie of big highs, very emotionally resonant. And then you go to the best live actions, and they are, how sad can I make you in the shortest amount of time possible?
Yes, totally.
Exactly.
Is that when you were deciding to make this, because obviously you're taking it to festivals, so you have to be thinking this is a touring movie. Was there any point where you're I want it to be, it has to be sadder? It's not an emotional gut punch enough.
You want to take that one, Fiona?
It's interesting. I do think that our first draft of the script was a lot sadder, actually, and it was in the process. It's like it just didn't feel right to our sensibilities. Like, we are people who our favorite films are sad, but also really funny, and they have like this sense of real life to them. Like, I find that overly dramatic, overly sentimental films just don't reflect life the way that I see it. You know. But I think that like the lows feel lower because it is funny. You know what I mean? Like, it has to have that contrast. But I think we would kind of hate ourselves if we ended up making like a depressing piece of cinema starring Vic Michaelis. Like, that just doesn't feel true to life in us.
It feels wrong to stifle them in that way and be just like, don't make us laugh.
Yeah.
It's too much, you know.
And it did honestly get funnier because of Vic also. Like, it was always a dramedy on the page, but the moment, Vic entered the scene, it was like, okay, and we're laughing a lot harder than we even imagined we could.
Yeah. I would say, like, it's everyone is fantastic in it. I don't want to just highlight Vic. It's easiest for me to do because they're the one I know. I was going to say the best. They're the only person I know personally from the movie. But yeah, it's really it goes through a lot of people really quickly because you are going to these different houses. Obviously, like, especially in 20 minutes, it's a lot of story to tell. Corey, when you were writing this, like, I guess if we should start way at the beginning of it all, like, how did this idea come to you? Like, where did this like come from?
Yeah, so I actually, it came from my first year at AFI. I had like my first screenwriting class and they were like, bring 3 ideas, and I had 2. And so I was like panicking night of being like, what can I form into a paragraph that would sound like slightly coherent? And I came into AFI really determined to write queer projects because at my last film school, I wasn't out yet. And so I kind of avoided it like the plague. I was like, we're going to do a lot of friendip stories, a lot of things where it's just like,
and they were roommate stories.
And they were
literally.
That's so true. And I came across this New Yorker article that was about these like queer activist groups that were kind of popping up all across the nation at around the same time in the early 1970s, where the queer liberation movement was really picking up steam. And this article just had like kind of everything that I look for in a movie. Like, it felt very like that underground sense of like finding your family and choosing your family when you feel like such an outsider in the world around you. And it was funny and like told these stories of like these people that were frankly like pretty not ready to take in a child, but were just willing enough to open their doors so these kids wouldn't get bounced around from like neglectful foster family that was only using them for money, or like a religious group home, which obviously is a terrible place for a queer kid to end up, and instead land with people that were like them. And yeah, it just reminded me of all of the movies that like Fiona and I love, like Almost Famous and Holdovers and Short Term 12, where it's like unlikely people finding each other from like, a shared common strife or something. And yeah, I was just really taken about it. So it actually started as a feature, and I wrote the feature first year. And then Fiona and I have known each other for 12 years now, 13 years, going on 13. And we have collaborated a bunch of times. So when we both got into AFI at the same time, we knew we were going to do thesis together. And we're like trying to come up with ideas that would make sense for the scale of thesis and what we could do with it. And Fiona ended up reading the first 40 pages, which is all I had at the time, and was like, well, I think we can take this first act and make it into a proof of concept and a short that would work as like a standalone piece. Because that's always the trick with proof of concepts, is like it has to work emotionally in its shorter form, or no one's going to care to see more of it, you know? So yeah, that's how it kind of all started. It was very like kismet, I guess, that I found the article I did.
Oh man, that's so cool. Yeah, this is now completely off topic, but we recently bought a new car, which means we traded in 2 old cars, but one of them was old enough that it still had CDs in it, and it had the Almost Famous soundtrack.
Oh,
just maybe
Incredible.
the greatest soundtrack ever. Like I forgot how good it was because I just haven't listened in forever, and like I saw like it was like, because I'm a type that they're organized alphabetically, so it is the CD on top, and I was like, oh yeah, I haven't listened to that in forever, and I like fired it up, and I was like, oh, this is great,
amazing.
Shout out to Stillwater, like one of the greatest fake bands of all time.
So good. So rarely do you get a fake band that has a actually enjoyable song in a movie.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right, back to the movie though. Fiona, obviously, like we've covered a bit of like how you got involved, but yeah, what drew you into this project specifically from that script?
Yeah. I mean, I for me, it was a lot of things. Like right with it. Like I love the fact that it was highlighting a piece of history that nobody knows about, really. You know, I really like the idea of like paying homage to these like incredible radical people who were doing this incredible work totally underground. I thought that is so beautiful and so resonant still today, because we are in 2025 and we are still actively discriminating against queer people for adoption and fostering. And it's quite insane when you think about the fact that queer kids are way overrepresented in the foster system, you know? So to me, it had that like, it was extremely relevant, extremely sort of like emotional, just on a basic conceptual place. And additionally, I think like reading Corey's script, it was just like, I need to see these people on my screen. You know, if there's anything I can do to just bring these characters to life, like for me and for Corey, I think too, like for us, every story starts with characters, starts with people that we can just genuinely fall in love with, people we want to see. They remind us of other people that we know, that we love, parts of ourselves. I think I really ultimately saw myself in, especially Margaret, but also in Joyce. You know, I love, like, you know, it reminded me of like the care that I grew up in Sweden as a refugee from the war in Kosovo, and I remember feeling like people like Joyce, like my teachers were my Joyces. You know, they were like bringing food to my doorstep when I was young because my mom was a struggling, like, you know, single mother, and then I find myself, or see myself so much in Margaret's, like angry, you know, like scared of vulnerability, distrustful of the world. It just sort of checked every box for me, and I love subverting this, like, you know, quite sad at the core, quite sad story, at least like the starting point of the story, into something that could have mainstream appeal. You know, I think like there's something for everybody in this story.
Yeah, I will say, like, I know I'm gonna butcher this, and I'm so sorry. Spatemi, is that? Did I get close?
So close.
Spatimi. Okay, I know, like obviously, like your deep passion of like telling these marginalized stories, like. It makes sense, like looking at your body of work, why this would resonate with you.
Yeah, 100%.
It's also feels just like look, like you mentioned, we're living in 2025. The world's a nightmare. You know, like every day is a new attack on trans people, queer people, just across the board. And like telling these kinds of stories that have that, it feels. It's one of those things where you're like, oh, movies make differences, because like this is the kind of thing where like you tell a story of like a queer youth that like needs a home, and in theory someone who sees it could be like, oh, I get it, from like an emotional perspective. I don't have this ended in not a question mark. Can you talk about that? That's a question.
Yeah, I mean, Corey, do you want to take that?
Yeah, sure. I think like one of your questions earlier actually made me think of this, is just like, well, it could be sadder, and it definitely could be. And I think that growing up, all of the queer media I was consuming was tragedy, you know, like it stems from, you know, historically there being rules of, if you're going to show a queer character, they cannot have a happy ending because we don't want to promote that kind of behavior in society. And even though that doesn't exist anymore, that mindset is still very much like present. And frankly, like, I just think there needs to be more than that. I think there needs to be kind of hopeful pieces of media that, I don't know, would have helped me when I was younger, that I could have showed my friends, and like maybe they could have had a little bit of a peek into what it feels like to be, you know, closeted. And because it's a specific type of loneliness growing up queer, even when your family is great, which mine is, and you know that you're not going to get kicked out, it still feels really isolating because you're separated from the normal experiences of growing up, like first crushes and first kisses and stuff like that. You just feel other. And so with Dandelion, I think that accessibility of feeling like you could show it to anyone was really important to us for like throughout the entire process, because I do think that leads to actual change. If I can show this to like a family member that wouldn't have known about it otherwise and has the means to do something about it, I think that that's huge. And we've only started our festival run a few weeks ago, honestly, a month ago, and we're already seeing like reactions from people that it does really affect, and meeting people from like queer outreach groups that are, you know, we were just at Cascadia in person and met this incredible woman who runs the Bellingham Queer Collective and is actively doing the work of Joyce, actively making queer centers. They're trying to make Bellingham a sanctuary city for trans youth, which is just incredible that someone like that, who is truly a hero for, you know, my community, is seeing the project and resonating with it. Because I do think that I think you have to believe to want to do this job of writing or directing, because it's not glamorous most of the time, that some of this stuff could make a difference at the end of the day, even if it's just like a kid watching it and feeling seen. I think that's really important.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, I'll say like it definitely feels like it feels like a movie, like you said, like you could show anyone, but like that there is that specific resonation. That's probably not a word. Resonance that will hit with people. And like I said, obviously I said it could be sadder, and now we've talked. But like, so like for folks out there who are thinking about watching it, it does end somewhat hope. Like there's at least a glimmer of hope at the end of it, which I think is great, because good God, also 2025 glimmer of hope. Ooh, what a
we
time
really need that.
Yeah,
Exactly. No, I think that the sort of like the classic arc, right, is especially of a dramedy like this, is that there's this sort of absolutely needs to be a glimmer of hope, and it needs to have also not, the message also can't be, and by the way, everything's going to be all right, because everything won't be all right unless we do something about it. So there's like kind of like a baked in call to action too, you know. So we wanted to do that, but you know, essentially the ending of the film is hopefully to get the audience to sort of want to know more, and what next, what happens with these two characters now that they are where they're at the end.
I'll say so I have a Patreon, and I always ask people if they want to ask questions for folks. This one, a bit of a barrier of entry because they had to watch the movie first. But someone did, which is, I think, exciting.
Oh, great.
They first of all, like, talked about how beautifully shot it was, how emotionally resonant it was. But one of the things they wanted me to ask you is, what is Ruth's deal? Which I think is a great question. Yeah.
That's so funny. Yeah, Ruth is a much bigger character in the feature, obviously. Sarah Cortez, who plays Ruth, is someone we've worked with since the start of our AFI journey, and is like a ball of energy and stuff. And so basically, there's a lot of like Joyce's backstory that is not in the short because we're in Margaret's perspective. And we kind of knew that going in, that we're not going to answer some questions, and we have to hope that people want to know more instead of getting frustrated with the fact that there's some things left unsaid. But a big part of Joyce's character is that she likes to keep her work and her life separate. In order to do the work that she does, she can't take in every kid. And so that has always been like kind of a postmark for Joyce of like, and the vulnerability thing scares Joyce as well. And so Ruth is supposed to be kind of the exact opposite, who has been bugging Joyce for like ever, being like, we can do this. We're in a successful relationship. We have a house. Why are we not helping more kids? And so when Joyce finally brings a kid home, it's like every argument they've ever had about that next step in their relationship is like now in her foyer, and she's already a little tipsy from all of the like martinis she's been drinking, and she's truly like, oh, this is different. She knows Joyce too well for being like, this kid must be something special because Joyce wouldn't do this any other way, and I think Ruth deep down knows that Margaret was probably going to stay the second she walked through that door, even if Joyce and Margaret hadn't gotten there yet. I think she's just like, we had to, hopefully we found someone that we're just like, we just need someone that would be kind of shocking for Joyce to be with too, that is just like kind of the exact opposite of Joyce's like constantly fixing her cardigan and like the awkwardness and stuff, and hopefully Ruth is all of those things. But yeah.
That's great. Yeah, it's always fun when people put in questions that I'm like, oh, I wouldn't have asked, but I love this question. But yeah, I mean, also
that's so funny.
Yeah, like to you then, like speaking about like it is, because it is really beautifully shot. It is, and obviously like you, well, I shouldn't say obviously. Presumably, AFI opens doors that like, but like you're also setting a short in the 70s. Like there's a lot that goes along with like fashion and cars and things that like you have to take into consideration. It's, oh God, what was that? I was watching Mythic Quest, the show on Apple TV, and there's like a flashback episode to the 60s or 70s, and they're just like walking down the street. I'm like, this episode must have cost $1 million. The street is lined with cars from that are era appropriate. When you're thinking about approaching something as like as a short, which I know for a lot of people is I'm going to sink all of my money into making this movie. Obviously, like AFI, I presume changes things, but like how are you approaching that in terms of like, well, this is set in the 70s. This is what we need. Like, how do we make this happen?
Yeah, obviously a huge challenge, and it was one of the biggest draws for us actually, because we knew most likely once we were no longer students, we were not going to get the kind of discounts we would otherwise get at AFI to really ever do anything, period, ever again. Hopefully, in a feature like world, we will not have these barriers, but we probably will because it's 2025. Yeah, AFI does absolutely make that easier because we do have student discounts. We don't really pay for gear or any of that stuff, which is normally a huge expense for productions, but one of the questions we always get at festivals when we go is like, how'd you get all those cars? That must have cost you a fortune. It's hilarious because that is the one thing we didn't spend money on because we live in Los Angeles and we had a producer and her team who would go to Bob's Big Boy, which is like one of the most famous like Hollywood diners, and they have a car show every Friday night, you know, and they would go there every Friday night for I think 5 weeks and be like, please help us, we're making a film, we're students. I think we got every single car except for one for free. And so those people, the goodness of their heart, I don't know, would come, and especially those scenes were often shot at night too. So they were there at midnight eating shitty student film pizza. It was just a lot of luck, a lot of favors, a lot of discounts, and I think we were able to keep our budget pretty modest compared to what other people would spend on something like this for that reason. But honestly, it was what was so exciting. You know what I mean? Like, our production designer got to imagine, and by the way, so many story locations. That was one of the biggest challenges for us, obviously, was that we had over 20 story locations that we had to do in 5 days in 5 actual locations. So like every single location doubled for at least 2 other locations. It was just ridiculous. And then one of the best parts was definitely that we got to shoot on the Radford studio lot, which is where Seinfeld shot. So some of those exterior scenes and some of those, like the baby scene is on that. It's like where like the Desperate Housewives shot or something. And that was accessible to us, again, because we are students, because Radford has some sort of a relationship with AFI. And so all we needed to pay for was like somebody to be there overnight, like some sort of a nurse or something like that. So yeah, AFI absolutely made it doable, but we were also incredibly scrappy and had, you know, didn't take no's for an answer, basically.
That's so great. Yeah. I swear I'm just going to keep referencing other weird media. I've been listening to the Lonely Island and Seth Meyers podcast, and they talk about, especially the early times when they were like going out and shooting shorts. The thing that they would do is, if people came up to them, they would try to gauge whether it would be better to tell them they were film students at NYU or with Saturday Night Live, because like if they were with Saturday Night Live, the people might want money to like shoot where they were shooting, and they didn't have money. But like if they were film students, people might not want them because they're, you know, like kind of blow them off of like, well, you're just film students, who cares? So they had to like try and like thread that needle of like, all right, how do we make this for no money and make it look good and like get these locations that we want?
Well, it was interestingly enough, like it was a good thing for us most of the time with location owners specifically, because they've had, I mean, AFI has been shooting around LA for 80 years or something crazy like that. So like that was a good thing for them. And there was a good thing for them also because film schools usually have great insurance. So even if something were to go wrong, they would not have to pay for anything. So I think it helped for us at least. What were you going to say, Corey? Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, because like there is a weird thing about going to film school in LA is like we went to undergrad in Chicago, and so you could like shut down a street for like $25, and they were just do whatever you want. It's none of our business. And in LA, everyone's like, so I need a copy of your insurance. I need to make sure that you have like 3 references, because they're just so used to being asked to like shoot places. And so, yeah, it's like you gain some stuff because they're more familiar with the process, and you also lose the like, I guess like guerrilla aspect that you could get away with in other cities. But
how are we feeling about Chicago Pope? Are we
Chicago Pope? He's an icon. I love him so far.
I'm very out of the Pope space.
Fair.
Except you are not. We do love conclave. We've been talking about popes a lot. Cardinals.
Yeah, that's so true. No, but I have a friend in my writers group who realized that any Catholic man could become the Pope. And so he was campaigning for a good 5 days. Unfortunately, they didn't go with him. But
yeah, that's a shame. I did see someone who said they think a solid guess that this Pope has eaten more hot dogs than all 266 other popes combined.
be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is it's just very exciting.
Book that's seen the process of dyeing that river green is really interesting to me.
It's every bit of it is wild. I am refusing to watch any video of him because I just want to believe that he has that like deep, oh, we're gonna Adair, our Father who art in heaven. Like I want that accent, and I don't want to hear it because I know it can't be that.
Yeah, like why not?
It could be that.
As long as we can. Yeah.
Oh God. Yeah, I'll say like obviously. Speaking of Catholicism, the beginning of the movie is I don't know if it's Catholic. I don't. But it is like a Christian at least boarding house. And one of the other sort of interesting things that is. Sister Carmichael, like just basically openly talks about Ava's, or sorry, Margaret. I have the IMDb up here, and it's me trying to jump back and forth between names, so I didn't forget other people's names. Anyway, Margaret's like sexuality versus, but like sort of not mentioning race, which feels like intentional choice from you, the two of you, of like, all right, that we want to like there is so much that we could cover here. How do we how do you narrow in on like marginalization, like roulette in terms of like, all right, how do we like, where do we land on this?
I think when we started the casting process for Margaret, we were always like open to whatever actor we found that felt like Margaret was going to be Margaret regardless of race. But I think that you also have to be conscious of what existence on screen is saying. And when we saw Ava's tape, first and foremost, like that was Margaret. Like from the very first moment that she read, I think she did two scenes, the first scene in the car and then the big argument scene. And we keep telling these stories at Q&As, but like Ava is like sobbing in the tape, which is, I don't know how actors do that, but it was very impressive. And the person that's reading with her calls cut, and then Ava's just like, that was great. Wasn't that really great? Like completely breaks character. And like just that energy was something that we didn't see with anyone else that read for the role. And so, but also feeling responsibility. Fiona and I are white. And while Fiona's experience is very different growing up as a refugee, I'm from a suburb in Michigan. I am as white as
Yeah, and North Farmington really sells the whiteness.
100%. Our colors were brown and gold, which does not play well against the pale student body. But we knew that we had 20 minutes, and there's only a certain amount of things that you can cover in 20 minutes without clouding what your thesis is going to be. Knowing that we are going to be making a commentary on Margaret's parents, like later in the film, it just felt like almost too much for the amount of space that we had. And so we wanted to do the one job that we came to do as well as humanly possible and cast the right person, and feel like we did that without making it about that she was discriminated on both accounts. And so that was the choice we made. It to me always felt like the right one, was like, this is about Margaret being queer. And we talked with Ava about it and ended up changing the last name of the character to feel more authentic to her. But at the end of the day, I think you can only come to something with doing as much research as possible when it is something that is not your experience, and without completely ignoring it, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, it's I'll also say like it completely makes sense, right? Of like you can't in 20 minutes you can't be like, we're gonna cover all of humanity. but obviously, when you get your feature, which I assume that's where this conversation is going, right? Like you've left it
Absolutely.
open. There is plenty of space. You could potentially play in that space a bit more. I will say, like, obviously, for you, Corey, like coming from casting, like, and like big like projects, you know, what is it when you're involved in casting, like that like catches your eye, like you said, like this different energy? What is it that like about folks that, let's say there's an aspiring actor? It is not me, to be absolutely clear. I'm very happy with what I do.
You never know.
Yeah. But like what draws you into a person?
So I worked for Carmen Cuba for like 3.5 years before I started AFI, which was an incredible experience, and she's a genius and taught me so much just by being around her. But she always used to hinge on this idea that like you walk into a scene with a certain energy, regardless of how talented of an actor you are, and it's almost about leaning into figuring out what that energy is and finding out a way that you can best apply that to the character. Like, and that's not a super helpful note because it's not like a technique thing, but like, I think it just should show any up and coming actors like the whole be yourself thing is not bullshit. It's like very important, and you never know what the person on the other side is looking for. You might be exactly that. And if you are trying to cover up aspects of that to better fit something, it's actually probably going to come across as just less authentic. It's like Vic never read for us or anything, but if Vic came into the audition room and they were like avoiding their instincts to improv on lines that they knew they could make sound better or sound more natural, that would be such a disservice. And I'm not saying improv on every line because it depends on the project, but like, I think just trust yourself that you have something that could be interesting to the people behind you, because like, that's the whole thing is like, you never know what they're looking for, and every casting professional I know wants you to be the best person that they've ever seen. You know, they want it to just click, and when it does, it feels like magic almost. So I think just leaning into that feeling that you already have kind of naturally is cool.
I mean, I think like when you're directing actors, like the goal is never to pretend the best. You know what I mean? Like the goal is to be so real. You know what I mean? And so like that thing that's like people don't. Absolutely believe that actors can transform-ish, but I don't think that you can rid yourself of your essence. And if the goal of every scene is to find what's true and what's real for the characters and for the moment and for what the script is doing, what the job is for the story, then you have to cast the person that has that, whose essence is the character. And also the job of a screenwriter or a director, etc., is to also then, if you find a performer that you love for whatever reason and they don't exactly fit what you wrote, the ability to then pivot in the story is also crucial, right? It's like nobody's going to nail it 100%. In any way, and so you can't be so firm and inflexible. I think casting Vic made us rethink our feature quite a bit because of what they brought to the project that we didn't even, I don't know, it was just like a thing we didn't even know, an element, a layer that we didn't even know that Joyce could have that would elevate that character. So it's like kind of twofold.
Yeah. All right. Well, should we just like, usually when I talk to people who've worked with Vic, the thing that we talk about is they're just like one of the most brilliant human beings alive. Now, normally that is in the context of comedy improv. Obviously, you saw them in a very different context. Still fantastic. But like, for people in like the Dropout world, very different than like them being silly on very important people, right? Like it's a very different thing. Like, but do you just want to say like how great Vic is? That's always a fun clip that then I can text to them later.
We would never stop talking about how great Vic is. I mean, it truly is like absolutely one of the most brilliant people. Has an earnestness that is really kind of hard to come by, you know, and it's so in their eyes, you know what I mean? Like it's just one of those things. Like some actors have it. You put a camera in front of their face, and you're just, yes, absolutely this person. But on top of that, just like so incredibly intelligent and sharp with the script, right? It was a person who, when we met Vic and we did a Zoom call with them, like no rehearsal, nothing like that. They were just away filming, being busy and brilliant somewhere else. Just even talking about the script kind of immediately revealed that this is a person that we can collaborate with. You know what I mean? This is a person who gets the movie. We're not going to be on set spending 10, 30 minutes talking about what do they want right now. You know what I mean? It's just incredibly intelligent and sharp, and just so has that sort of magnetism on screen and the ability to just be emotionally present and real. And because they are obviously an awesome person, we knew that we were going to need somebody that could have that kind of undeniable sort of chemistry with another actor that they weren't going to meet until they were on set together. And who doesn't love being around Vic? You know, that's just like another element. It was just like, we know that these people have to enjoy being around each other. But yeah, I'm sure I missed like a million other amazing things to say about Vic. Corey, do you want to pick up where I left off?
Yeah, I mean, like, we always knew that this film was gonna like hinge on people loving Margaret and Joyce and loving them together, and so like it felt like a behemoth task to try and find those two people, and like it truly, I think finding Vic was one of the best things that happened to us throughout the entire production, because like Fiona was saying, they brought something to the character that, you know, was kind of on the page, but not really. Joyce was always like a little awkward and like occasionally funny without knowing it. But when you get someone like Vic, you're just like, take this and run, because everything they came up with was gold. Like, without fail, the biggest laugh we get in the entire movie is a line that Vic improv'd once. And like, it's the Mighty Mouse line where it's like, mice are mighty, they're predators, they started the plague.
It's literally in my notes. Mice are mighty, they started the plague.
Of course.
And that was the first day we were shooting, and they did that during one of the takes. Like, we're delirious at this point. This is one of our 12-hour days, and we're laughing at monitor, and we're like, well, yeah, maybe that won't make the cut. Thankfully it did, because by far it's the biggest laugh we get at every single screening. And as a writer, that is slightly devastating. As a fan of Vic, it is great. Because we are Vic fans first and professionals second. But yeah, I think what Fiona's saying too is it also just felt like kind of a real honor to showcase Vic's talent in a way that a lot of people don't know about, because Vic is a dramatic powerhouse, and whatever they want to do next is, you know, I think the world is kind of their oyster, and getting to be a part of that and just giving them a role that I think, you know, it wouldn't necessarily have come their way otherwise, is just like truly one of the best things, is like finding an actor who can like, who fits the character that I spent like 3 years up until the point we're starting with, and makes it better than you could have ever imagined, is kind of like the goal. I don't know. I think that it was truly an honor to get to work with them in this context.
I just want to add one tiny thing before we move on, because another thing that I really appreciate about Vic is that they will say when they don't understand something, or like they you know, they'll be very sort of, they'll be very honest. Like it's not one of those, because it's hard actually to come across actors that are willing to be real and honest with you, because a lot of them are people pleasers and they just want to be loved and validated, and will do whatever it takes, and Vic has this like confidence that allows them to be very honest. And so it was a really a gift for me, because I would, the thing is, like, most people will know and pick up on a vibe not being exactly right, but everybody's so rushed. You're just like, you know, the sun is setting, everybody's losing their minds. It's like so scary and so stressed out. You really sort of sometimes end up making mistakes because of that. And actors like Vic don't really let you make mistakes because they're going to be very real, and you're going to know, okay, we need to do that again, and that was a great idea, and let's go. So I really appreciate them. Both her and Ava are exactly like that, right? Where you're talking to them and you're talking to people who are just as invested in making this movie really good, and I really value that in a collaborator.
Yeah. Oh man. So good. Yeah. I was like you've talked a bit about this and just mentioned it again. Like these bonkers days. Like shooting movies is always difficult. Like it's always like a crash of like, all right, we got a 12-hour day today. It starts at 4 a.m. or whatever. You know, like. But for a short, especially, you said you had 5 days to do this, which. I mean, maybe for people unfamiliar with filming, like 5 days for 20 minutes maybe doesn't seem like that much, but it's a ton of time that you have to do, like setting up, getting people into, you know, wardrobe, all of those things. Can you talk a bit about like what that crash course is like in terms of just like pure adrenaline filmmaking?
Yeah. My God, I think the biggest lesson is having failed a million times before, and like having not been realistic with yourself in prep. You know, a huge part of what makes something like this possible. Which I will say, you know, 5 days could be a long time for 20 minutes. It just depends, right? What your film is asking for. But like I said, we were trying to make 20. We were trying to shoot 20-story locations, so it was just kind of ridiculous. We had prep teams and wrap teams that were separate from our main teams that were working each day. I mean, it was really kind of a juggling act. But all of that happens because you are supported by really brilliant production people. So, for example, our first AD, Justo, was literally the key to making all of this happen. And we had extensive scheduling meetings where we sit down and she would be like, "You're crazy. That's not happening." You know what I mean? It's like nobody gets a shot in 5 minutes. I'm sorry, it just doesn't work that way, you know? And so again, it most of this happens on in prep, and because we were so well prepped, and because we had the luxury truly of having amazing people who were volunteering their time most of the time to help, it made it possible, but it was almost impossible. Like you know, there was a time at the end when we called cut on the last day, where team members were just running up to me sobbing, like exhausted and so relieved that it was over. Of course, right? It's like running a marathon for 5 days. But the thing is also, you wouldn't want it kind of any other way. I feel like even as a person, I kind of function like that when you're at your wit's end and you're like really kind of running on no sleep, and freaking out is when you're also able to be the most creative or something. Like there's all these like the editor in your brain disappears. There's no time to think, you know, it's all instinct. And I do think that a large part of creativity is sort of like hinges on your ability to improvise and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, every step of the way we were told by people that what we were doing was impossible. We should just kind of throw in the towel now. Which the thing is, if you say that to me, I'm just gonna want to do it even more. But yeah, we had faith in each other that we could do it.
Yeah. I mean, you showed them because not only did you finish, it's a really remarkable film. That like is like I said, like I'm always afraid, like in these interviews when I get someone, like, because sometimes I bounce out of like the specific dropout, I might get to like an actual play, like people playing Dungeons and Dragons that I haven't seen, and then I have to go watch it, and I'm always like, what if it's bad? And then I have to like sit with these people for an hour and be like, I really liked it. But like the point of this was that yours isn't, and like I've never run into that yet, where someone has made a bad thing that I've had to then talk to them about. But like, yeah, it's like I said, it's a really, like, it's just such a punch of everything in those 20 minutes, which is such a delight to get to see. And yeah, I know you like you're at Cascadia for 2 days still. But what does festival circuit look for you guys in like the next couple of months?
What does it look like for us? Like, where are we going?
Yeah, like,
what's happening?
Yeah, where are you going? How taxing and stressful is this time for you?
It's not. I don't know. I feel really lucky that we get to do it. So I feel like I don't. Of course it's tiring. But it's so lovely because it's really the first time that either of us have been out at a festival with a film that we made. Like, we've made a lot of shorts, but I've at least never made one that I was like, yeah, this is worth paying thousands of dollars to submit to festivals, get rejected over and over again, and then, travel to the one that wants you. But with Dandelion, I think we both kind of felt that we had something special and we want the world to see it. And so the festivals is a wonderful opportunity to meet other filmmakers. And so, I mean, this is a community, right? Like, filmmaking is a community sport, and so it's a wonderful opportunity to network, to meet people, and also really get to experience with a real audience. That's something that, at film school you sort of think, what do you mean? Like, everybody there loves movies, it must be a great experience showing it to film students. It's not. It's one of the worst experiences because everybody's just like, I don't know. I'm not going to shit on film students. Moving on. Basically, it is hard because everybody there has their filmmaker hat on, you know what I mean? And so it even becomes hard to watch other movies, like real movies, you know what I mean? Like good movies that you loved. All of a sudden, we're watching it with this lens that kind of distorts everything. But getting to see it with a real audience, with like Gary and Linda that live down the street in Bellingham, Washington, came to watch the movie, and they're just like moved. And it's like, wow, we made a movie for the people. I think that's kind of that's what's so valuable about the festival sort of circuit journey for us, and on top of that, like with Michelle, who we met in Bellingham, who does that runs the Queer Collective, like, we met with a person who's interested in helping us with the film, like interested in seeing how we can be mutually beneficial. And some festivals are, of course, a little bit more sort of industry presence. We are going to some, we can't say right now because they have to sort of announce that themselves first, but we're going to some that are going to have some more industry presence, and then the sort of like multiple more doors will open to talking to people, execs, producers, managers, agents, etc., who might really want to see this movie made. So the goal really is, because it is a proof of concept, that we meet at least one rich person. If you're out there listening to this podcast, hit us up. We need a couple mil to make the feature. But yeah, but it's lovely. I mean, for so many different reasons, it's at least, it's like, if I've been tired, it doesn't matter. I've loved every second of it.
We will be at Inside Out. That is one that we can announce, which is
yes, that we have announced.
In Canada, which is a huge it was like one of our like white whale festivals to get into, so we were so excited to watch it with a new audience. And yeah, I think that's the biggest thing, is just getting to it never gets not nerve-wracking to like sit and be like, what if nobody laughs? Because like, especially with comedy, it's like, what if this is just the one screening where like nothing works and stuff? But usually that doesn't happen, and it's been really rewarding to see people react to it.
Oh, I love that. All right, well, if folks want to follow along as you announce other film festival locations, where could they find that information to find out?
Yeah, so if you wanna follow our Instagram account, it's basically our main platform where we announce news about the film, where it's going, coverage it's getting, and that's Dandelion Thesis Film is the Instagram handle, and you can find like links to tickets for future festivals. A lot of them do have online components, so which is what the Cascadia is right now, because Cascadia was actually about a week and a half ago that we were there in person, so anything you might wonder about will be there. Dandelion Thesis Film.
Amazing. Corey, Fiona, thank you so much. It was such delightful conversation. I can't wait to clip some of this and send it to Vic because they're going to be so uncomfortable with how much praise they got, which I love.
Yeah.
Love you, Vic. Thank you, Jordan,
Thank
so much. This was amazing.
Thank you. I don't know how to end an interview, so I'm just going to hit stop recording.
Sounds good.